Hello, it's Don and Nicole. Welcome to Tax Wars. Today we've got a very exciting show. We were actually shooting today live. This will be pre-recorded and probably uploaded tomorrow. But we are on the campus of University of California, Riverside today. On our way here, we were passing the Student Loan Services Center here on campus. It's a relatively new building. And the entire place has obviously been cornered off. They've got the police tape around the entire building. I don't think Nicole killed anyone. So they also had bomb-sniffing dogs, several of them entering the building. I did manage to get some footage off of that on my iPhone. And I don't know if Nicole was able to get any.
Yes, I did.
But we're going to go ahead and post that. Coincidentally enough, we're going to be talking to Keith Connolly today. Keith Connolly is a CFP, an extraordinary man, and he specializes in student loan debt forgiveness. So, as you may be aware, this is a political season. Students are angry. They want their student loan debt forgiveness, and that was why they voted for Joe Biden.
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to wait and see if we get more information coming to you on this. In the meantime, we're just going to continue on with the show from here. We'll also be talking to Keith Connolly, certified financial planner, very good friend, and see if he's got some insight into the latest in student loan. We'll also be covering how student loan debt forgiveness works, how student loan just affects many of, especially the millennials, in terms of their taxes and being able to do things that they want to do, or things that it prevents them from doing, just getting on with their lives. So Keith Connolly is coming right up with us, and we'll open the show shortly with him. So stay tuned. Tax Wars. In the meantime, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and please leave a comment, especially if you have some information or questions regarding student loan debt forgiveness and taxes. All right, we'll be right back. Keith Connolly, CFP, here on Tax Wars. And welcome to Tax Wars with Don and Nicole. We've already done a brief intro talking about our guest today, Keith Connolly. He is a certified financial planner, CFP, in the wonderful area of Orange County. We love having him on the show. One of the things that Keith is very, very specialized in, along with the rest of the financial planning services that he provides to the community, is student loan debt and student loan debt forgiveness. And he's done many workshops on this, has very specific information. He's probably one of the top 5 people in the country who really, really understands student loan and student loan debt forgiveness. And he's going to be talking about that information today. And we're also going to be responding in terms of how that might affect someone with regard to their taxes. Okay, so with no further ado, we're going to go ahead and introduce Keith Connolly, who will just tell us a little bit about himself. Keith, welcome to the show with Don and Nicole.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm great. I'm glad to be here.
So why don't you, if you can, just take a brief moment and as much time as you want, kind of tell our audience, who is mostly financial and tax professionals, about how you got into the business, where you started, what you enjoy about it, and some of the things that you do, and advice, because we have a number of financial planners also that watch the show. What unique things that you do with your clients. Okay.
Right. Yeah, sure. So I became interested in financial planning almost by accident. I was a minister in churches for a number of years and had a lot of people coming to me because I was a trusted person, asking them questions about money. Well, I didn't know anything about money. Years later, I was working for FedLoan, which is, as of today, the largest federal student loan servicer in the country. They're actually closing their doors, probably in October. But when I went to FedLoan, I was learning more and more about finances, learning about how to read the FAFSA, tax forms, and counseling student loan borrowers. And I became a supervisor in the default collections department. And it was at that point where I just really became interested in what people were doing with their money, how they made decisions, and I had a lot of questions about building wealth. So when my family and I moved back to Southern California, I had already completed the education requirement for the Certified Financial Planner designation. And after I took the exam, I got licensed in both insurance as well as investments, and started my business in 2018. And since that time, I've been working primarily with business owners, with anything from like a 401k to business succession and continuity planning, investment management. But I also work often with early career medical professionals as well as other high income folks who probably have a significant student loan balance and are working for either a public service entity, whether that's the county or the federal or a state government, as well as for nonprofits. And I've worked quite a bit with early career medical professionals because we all know that, hey, they have a large student loan balance, and when they work at, say, a nonprofit hospital or a nonprofit medical center, or even perhaps the county, or they have these significant student loans and they have the opportunity to have their loans forgiven in as little as 10 years. But the problem is that only 2% of those borrowers who have applied for public service loan forgiveness have ever received approval. And there's a multitude of reasons for that, that we could talk about maybe another time. But when it comes down to it, the fact is that it's such a complex plan, and it's been administrated so poorly by FedLoan, and the borrowers haven't really understood what the requirements are. And so what I do is I work with these borrowers to help them in a way that the federal student loan servicer is not able to do, where I'm able to look at their whole entire picture, help the client gain perspective on what their career goals are, looking at the tax ramifications of doing, paying off the loans versus getting them forgiven, finding ways to help them understand how to get the lowest income driven repayment, which is part of public service loan forgiveness, and getting them a really good understanding of how to succeed. Because without really knowing the requirements, the chances of you succeeding are pretty much zero.
Right.
And the servicers aren't communicating them, and quite frankly, the borrowers aren't asking. And so I'm able to help those early career medical professionals or other professionals, or in the public service or nonprofit, receive approval for loan
So now,
forgiveness.
you know the path probably better than most people, and what is the total amount of student loan debt right now in the United States from borrowers right now? Do you have any idea? Last I heard, it was like 1.7 trillion.
Yeah, yeah, it's something like that. The only debt load that's bigger are
Right.
mortgages. There's more student loans than credit cards debt in this country. The average student loan balance for the average borrower is about 34,000. Some folks have less. Some folks, especially medical professionals, for example, have quite a
Right.
bit more.
I've seen people who will have a student loan debt well in excess of $100,000, which is not uncommon amongst certain medical professionals or even legal professionals, such as
Correct.
lawyers, as they go to the more expensive private schools to get that good degree. Hopefully, they can get it paid off. But I have also seen, over the past 20 years, there's a lot of people who chose to become, just stay full-time students forever, and they're taking these, social sciences classes, avoiding the STEMs, and I'm going to study, this particular study that focuses on this group, and they go on to another one. They've got their PhD, and they're not able to even get a job at Starbucks. And they have no way of ever paying
Right.
off that student loan, and it's in the excess of $100,000. Well, yeah, you have a PhD, but what can you do with that PhD? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it's not very marketable. Well, another thing that I've seen is because folks can get Social Security as early as age 62, what they'll say is, I never got to go to college, so I'm going to quit my job, collect Social Security, and I'm going to go to college. And they're going to go to Chapman College. They can get that student loan no matter what. It's not based on anything like credit or there's no collateral. They just give you the student loan. And, by the time they're done with college, maybe they'll do it in 4 to 6 years. They have a very large student loan balance, the same as someone who uh, is, maybe 22, but now they only have Social Security to pay on those student loans. They're a bit older and they don't understand the different programs like income driven repayment. And I've seen it more times than I care to admit. What they do is they end up having these loans go into default because they can't pay them. And then what happens is their Social Security gets to be offset, and so now half of their social, a percentage of their Social Security is not coming to them. It's going towards their student loans, and they have to make payments on the student loans for maybe 9 to 10 months if they're eligible for that, before they'll get their full Social Security back, and then they have to get back in to repayment terms once loans are back in good standing. So it's a real
Oh,
problem.
I have actually encountered in working in tax resolution, Nicole and I, people who were 67 years old, got that student loan, went back. I mean, you're 67, you're retired, you're on Social Security, and all of a sudden, I'm going to go back to school and become why someone would do that, but I imagine that there are people, and they do have that situation, and they can have student loan debt as much as $40,000 I've seen, and they're never going to work
Mm-hmm.
again. And I asked them why. They go, well, it was fun. I got a chance to meet students and be on campus. I never experienced that I never went to college before. They're just really excited
Yeah.
about it. But when they get hit with that bill, everything changes for them.
Yeah. Well, the more common scenario for older folks is that they took out a Parent Plus loan for their child or grandchild
Yes.
to go to college, and they don't want to make their child or grandchild pay for the loan, and so they're stuck with the bill. And the thing that these borrowers have to understand is that if that loan's not being paid, it's not going to affect the student's credit, and they're not going to go after the student when it goes into default. They're going to go after the signer of the loan, and if it's a Parent Plus loan, they're going after the parent or the grandparent who took
Exactly.
out
As
the
a matter of
loan.
fact, we had a tax client. He had 7 kids, and he did the Parent Plus loan on 7 children. He wanted all of his children to go to college, and he made good money, but he was paying on all 7 of those loans, and it was just tragic.
Yeah. Yeah. Parent Plus loans are, quite frankly, the bane of my existence. At least one of them. Um, there, if the child doesn't qualify for enough loans to go to that college to pay for the full tuition, then they need to find a different college. And I don't care who you are, what college you're going to. If your parent is unable to pay for the tuition and they need to get a Parent Plus loan, you should always be looking for the different college where you're not requiring your parents to take out those loans, because it's those same parents that are taking out those loans who are unable to save for retirement or for the later part of your years, and the child's gonna end
Did
up
I hear
taking
you
care of
mention
them
that grandparents also take out these loans, co-financing? I mean,
all the time.
I don't know who came up with this Parent Plus, product, but obviously it's been a lot of people have utilized it to get the financing for their children and grandchildren. I can imagine, I guess great grandma and great grandpa can also be a grandparent plus a situation as well.
Well, I mean, we're talking to a bunch of financial professionals, so
Okay.
let me just speak plainly. If the government did not issue so many student loans, the cost of tuition would go down. But because the government will issue student loans to everyone for any amount, the colleges have no incentive to cut tuition or expenses like a normal business would. So what ends up happening is these colleges become marketing centers where they're building bowling alleys, theaters, and all kinds of extra things to attract their
Exactly.
students to their school. And who
Right.
pays for that?
Well, we're about to find out.
And if you can't afford it, oh, that's okay. Sign this master promissory note and we'll give you the money so you can come to our school. And in the meantime, tuition inflation is through the
Exactly.
roof.
I mean, if this wasn't backed by the government, you'd think it was a pyramid scheme. Our Ponzi scheme of some kind. Who would have knew? Who would have known
Right.
that this would actually happen? We're here
Yeah.
at a UC campus today. I went to UC Irvine. Of course, I got an athletic scholarship, everything paid. But I remember my when I got that athletic scholarship, my parents were so happy. They go, "Well, we don't have to pay for your college," and they go, "And thank God, your yearly tuition is $6,000." Oh, 6,000! I'm old. I am 62, by the way, and so I was thinking, a couple of years back, I said, "Oh wow, I can go get a student loan," because I saw that a lot of seniors were doing that, and I could go back and become what was it I want to do?
Yeah.
I want to go back. I want to go back and be a neurologist. Can you believe it? A neurologist. It was something I always wanted to study, but it's very, very interesting what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and what borrowers need to know about their student loans is that there are a multitude of repayment options out there. There are a number of different forgiveness programs out there, but they just have to know, what their goals are. The first thing that someone comes to me to talk to them about their student loans, the first thing I ask them is, what's your goal? Do you want them forgiven or do you want to pay them off? And, sometimes they don't, the idea of, I want them forgiven. Can you do that today? And the answer is, well, no, probably not. But, who is your employer? Do you work for a public service? Do you work for the government? Or do you work for a 501c3 nonprofit? Or do you have work for a for-profit business? These are all these kinds of questions. And if you're a medical professional, you could potentially have a number of different options available to you, including public service loan forgiveness. If you're a nurse at say, Children's Hospital of Orange County or UCI Irvine Hospital or Hoag, I'm just thinking of places here in Orange County, but there's nonprofit hospitals all over the country. If you work for them or you work for a nonprofit medical center, you could potentially have those loans forgiven in as little as 10 years if you meet the criteria. And if you don't work for one of those employers, you could potentially still have forgiveness. It's just going to take a bit longer, as long as maybe 20 years or as many as 25 years, depending on whether the loans are from undergrad or graduate school. But with public service loan forgiveness, there's 5 different requirements that the borrowers are required to complete. And the thing that I tell the borrowers is you have to complete all 5 of those requirements at the same time. It's not, I'm going to do step
Wow.
1 and then I'm going to do step 2. If you miss one of those 5 requirements, everything's out the window. You will be denied.
Sorry, yeah. So we do a lot of tax. So we're just wondering.
I'm sorry.
As far as these people who are employed in these public service positions, once their loans are forgiven, are those going to be taxable to them on their tax returns? Will that be showing up as income? Okay,
no.
So IRS will not be.
It will not be showing up income, and it is a non-taxable event.
No.
So the public service loan forgiveness, it's a very complex program. And it's so complex that earlier this year, or maybe it was last year, I can't remember, the Biden administration issued some temporary waivers to get people more credit because the forgiveness approvals were so low, below 2%, that they issued some temporary waivers. And now what we're seeing is, kind of some contradictory things. We've seen more people getting approval, but we're also seeing folks who still don't understand the criteria. And so if you have been denied or know people who have been denied public service loan forgiveness in the past, they really need to talk to me like now, like today or tomorrow, because these temporary waivers can count towards their public service loan forgiveness, potentially getting them forgiveness earlier, or maybe they could be back on track. But they have to have those temporary waivers applied to their credit before October
Keith,
of this
could
year.
you just take a second?
So
just take a second.
This is the time of
while we're talking about this. Just go ahead. Let the audience know. A lot of our tax professionals, our financial professionals, may have clients that they can send to you specifically for this. I'm going to give your website and a good contact number for you as to how they can get a hold of you.
Yeah. Well, I'm on LinkedIn. That's really my website. I'm on LinkedIn almost every day. And I can be reached at 949-438-0397.
Yeah, sure.
And my email is kconley@onesco, onesco.net.
Such a very important subject, student loans, something that we haven't covered on this show. And when we do, periodically, we're always going to be referring, hopefully have you on the show to do that with us, Keith. So we're going to go ahead and put list at the end of the show your LinkedIn, your phone number, and your email address, because you're one of the few people who really, really thoroughly understand and cover this subject. One of the things I want to mention, I wanted to talk about there was some student loan forgiveness with the Corinthian colleges that went through, and I'm sure I think it was like $350 billion. Was that the number roughly?
I'm not sure what the number is, but a lot of these for-profit schools, if you were enrolled in those schools when the school closed, the loans have been automatically forgiven if you were unable to complete the degree. So if someone graduated 3 years ago or 3 years before the school closed, then they're still liable for the loans. Degree. Or maybe they just stopped the program, and then when they were no longer enrolled, the school closed. They're still having to pay for the loans. But this has happened. It's not just Corinthians. There's ITT Tech and a number of other for-profit schools where this has happened.
Just amazing. So, do you anticipate that we are or would you say that we have been or will continue to be much longer in a student loan debt crisis? How do you see the country getting out of this?
I don't have any easy answers on that. What I will say is that I'm very skeptical that a meaningful amount of student loan borrowers are going to see any forgiveness, from the Biden administration. The Biden administration, during his campaign a few years ago, was kind of vague. They said that the only loans that would be forgiven would be undergraduate loans for the most neediest people. So, it would be based on income, but they didn't say what that was. And, for a lot of my clients who are going to be, maybe they're not making $200,000 or more now, but in a few years they will be. They might be, say, a resident physician. Chances of them qualifying for any level of forgiveness is really not terribly good. And so there's been some debating, between Chuck Schumer and Biden, and saying about how much could be forgiven. And Biden administration said maybe $10,000. Well, if you have $250,000 of student loans, sure, you'll love to have $10,000 forgiven, exactly. But is that really all that meaningful?
If there were, if most of the student loan debt was wiped out, let's say 70% of it, 80% of it, by some stroke of the White House pen, what does that look like going forward for colleges? I mean, because people think, I'll go get out a student loan because they're going to forgive it again. You know what I mean?
But the problem with forgiving loans is that the government's not changing anything. They're still going to be issuing student loans. So what are we going to do? Are we going to have, every 7 years, are we going to forgive $10,000 of anyone who's has student loans? And what is that going to do in terms of the borrower perception on their requirement to repay?
Right.
So it's this. It's not even really a solution. It just creates more problems in forgiving student loans. I mean, I'm an I'm an idealist, but not a realist. So, the best thing that could happen, and I'm going to make a lot of people upset when I say this, and I have. The best thing that could happen, and it's not going to happen, but the best thing that could happen is that the government stops issuing so many student loans, and they get out of the student loan business.
Correct, right.
That would be the very best thing. Now, if that were to happen, there would be lawsuits galore and all kinds of people in an uproar. But quite frankly, that would be the best thing for higher education in this country.
One of the things that I talked to you briefly about is that a lot of the student loan debt has been re-rolled and packaged into many retirement accounts, and that's the other side of this. If you forgive a lot of the student loan debt, then we're talking about $1 trillion, how that would affect, mom and dad who actually co-sign for the loan with their 401ks. That's a scary situation as well.
Right. Yeah. Well, another thing that I believe it was the Trump administration did that I really liked was they, a business can pay up to $5,250 a year for tuition credit reimbursement. It's a tax deduction for the business, and it's a tax-free benefit for the employee. Well, the Trump administration said, well, let's do that with student loans. So if I go and I work for Nicole, her firm could pay up to $5,250 a year towards my student loan balance, and it's a tax deduction for her, and it's a tax-free benefit for me. That's a good idea. And so if if your clients, say your CPAs or your tax professionals, if their clients are offering tuition reimbursement, they should be doing that
I
for
think
their
you've come up
student
with the
loan
best
borrowers as
solution.
well.
I recommend. Anyway, you should be
It's
the
not my
student loan
solution.
debt czar for the Biden administration,
Yes.
and you've got my vote, Keith. But Keith, just because of for time's sake, we'd love to have you back on the show. We tend not to we don't like to go over 30 minutes, but I believe this is going to be one of our most successful episodes that we've had for Tax Wars, because you're touching on a very, very hot subject, and you are someone that people can go to and get answers, clarity, because there's so much confusion out there. And I don't how many student loan borrowers are there out there that are having trouble just even servicing their student loan debt. So we'll definitely have you back on the show as often as possible. Nicole, any
Yeah.
thoughts?
No, it was great. I know I have student loans
Thank you.
myself, so I'm gonna have to go see Keith about those.
Fantastic, Keith.
Yeah. Well, I've loved being here. It's been fun, and I'm happy to talk
Once
to
again,
whoever
everyone,
has any
if you
questions.
have comments, feel free to put them in the comment section. Be sure to like, subscribe. This will post tomorrow on the 30th, and we may have some additional updates in terms of what's going on at the student loan building right here at University of California, Riverside, and we're going to be cutting in some footage of what we saw today. In the meantime, Keith, love you, man. Love to have you back on the show. Always a pleasure. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank
All right.
you.
Goodbye for now, Keith.
All right. Thank you so much.
Okay, just to follow up on the episode, we are still at the UC Riverside campus. You see Nicole's walking just a little behind there. We're at the UC Riverside campus, University of California, Riverside. This is the Student Loan Services Center that was just at 8:30 today. Police had taped off the entire building with the police tape, went inside and brought in what appeared to be bomb-sniffing dogs. And however, they have already left approximately right now on the 29th. It is about 10:30 right now as I'm recording this. Didn't see any media come out. There's Tax Wars Nicole Davis, who was hoping they'd blow up the building and she wouldn't have to pay her student loan. Right, Nicole?
Yeah.
Okay.
Still hoping.
Okay. Well, you know what? Sometimes you have to take action on your own to get the job done right, Nicole. All right?
I'm gonna wait till you turn that camera off, though.
Okay. All right.
I need new witnesses.
Okay. So, yeah, this is the front of the building. This is a relatively new building. I think it was built within the past 2 years. Actually, I think this thing was built during COVID. Student Success Center. So you're only as successful as your student loan. We'll see if there's any reports in the news, either locally or nationwide. But once again, police had taped off the entire student loan service center. I think this is the new building. There also is an old one right here on the UCR campus. And however, there were probably about, I'd say a total of, which I didn't get footage of, a total of at least a dozen police vehicles, some unmarked, and they had a total of at least 4 to 5 bomb-sniffing dogs. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. Once again, UCR campus, that's University of California, Riverside, the Student Services Building,